Welcome to the Starting Over podcast. I am your host, Edward Shelton, aka Dark Logos, and this is where we look at the strategies and tactics behind the game of Heroclix. It is odd. It's pretty awesome today in Kansas City. It's like 60 something degrees outside, and somehow they call this winter. Oh man. If this is what global warming has for us. Ooh. Anyway, you might be wondering, Dark Logos, what we're going to talk about today. What we're going to do is real briefly let you know what's going on with the show overall. Then we're going to get into, briefly helping new guys and then into what I like to call Think Big. All right, what's up with the show? You may have noticed that I had a flood of shows come in. That's the training series. So if you're wondering, hey, what's up with this? In 2 days, you put up 12 videos. It's the training series. The main purpose of the training series, whether you're high level experience or low level experience, is that for you to come back with the powers and problem solve with each of them. The training series is not something that you're supposed to go through in one listen. You're supposed to try to do the activities and then come back and do the next episode. The training series, in all honesty, one section should pretty much be like 2 weeks to 3 weeks, unless you're just like dedicating a whole Saturday of gameplay so that you can grow over time. The idea is so that you won't just burst, I've taken in all this information, this is the things that I really like, but for you to really slowly marinate inside of the ideas and concepts. Okay? Next up, I am on Twitter, StartOverPod, at StartOverPod. Also, there is the blog. And just let you know, the blog is original content, people. I'm not, just taking the gems from the show, smacking it up on a blogger page, and then saying here, check this out, new hotness. No, I am actually giving you new content, and then mainly that in fan-related questions. A lot of things that were emails that I thought, hey, you know what? This would be a good blog post, or you know what? Other people would benefit from it. Those sort of things are going to go up on the blog. Also, I have HCO codes that I've been sitting on. And so now and then you might see a random HCO code being put up. First come, first serve. Pure and simple. First come, first serve. If no one gets it, okay. If someone gets it, okay. I'm not going to go check. I don't play HCO. The blog is startingoverpodcast.blogspot.com. It's just another way for you guys to, get more information. There are ads. It does help me a little bit, and trust me, the ads are like pocket change. So I'm not, getting rich over here. For the information. But it helps me out, and it also allows me to do more one-on-one with people. The other thing that needs to be noted really is that I had some poor analysis on the utility belt. The utility belt, if you do any action or whatever with utility belt, you are going to turn off of prep time. You don't just get to stay there. I do think that it should have just been worded a lot clearer, but it wasn't. The other thing that's interesting about the utility belt is that you could put multiple of the same objects on there. So it does sort of benefit you if you want to use X item multiple times, that you could, stock up on it. That thing, I didn't know that either, but if you want 3 batarangs on there, you can put 3 batarangs, which makes the first 2 months of No Man's Land really rough, or whatever like scenario your venue's doing, because if you have multiple venues in your area, you'll be seeing the high level players could play a full gauntlet, like at the end of this month or at the latest the end of January. So anyway, that's my retraction. I apologize for the misstatement, and I hope you all can forgive me on that. All right, let's go in real briefly on how to help new people, since there are a bunch of people that are listening that are newer players. And I like to say, hey, welcome, thank you. Like to shake your hand, and welcome to the game of Heroclix that's been going on for 10 years. We're glad that you're here. You have a lot of catching up to do. When you're dealing with new players, either in your venue or on the realms or wherever, you're having a mocha latte and you see a guy break open a booster. You say, hey, brother, sister, I see you play Heroclix, so do I. There's some things that you should try to go out there and help the other person on. The first is power combinations. And I know we talked about this in the training series, but power combinations are essential. Like someone will say, like, oh my gosh, he can use hypersonic speed, energy explosion, and range combat expert, and thinking that they can use all of those powers together. No. And so that's like the first thing that you should try to help a new person out, is saying, hey, let me tell you about power combinations and what really makes a figure valuable. The next thing is, if you are one of those I buy 15 cases people, save some commons and uncommons and a rare or two for the new guy. They'll appreciate it greatly, and they will remember it, because I know when I came in, people threw all sorts of stuff my way. A lot of it crap. A lot of it was crap. I'm not going to lie on that. But a good chunk of it, a good chunk of it was crap, yeah. But there was some pieces that I was able to pull out and do some amazing things. One of them, in particular, was Vertigo. I think it was Vet Vertigo. It was my first Perplexer. And then when I learned about Incapacitate, and how I could have won a game with Incapacitate, then it made me really look at what I had. Now, is it a good idea to always just give a bunch of power pieces to a new player? No, because they can get drunk on hypersonic speed. Oh gosh, they can get drunk on hypersonic speed. But the biggest thing that you have to do for a new player is just say, hey, here's how all the pieces work. This has this advantage, this has these other advantages. And just sort of sit down and talk with them. Next thing that I would tell you to do with a new player is, at the end of the tournament, ask them what they are thinking. A lot of the times it's going to be, oh man, I got stomped, but I had a great time. But unfortunately, that only lasts for 2 or 3 months at max. After a while, it's like, man, I've been doing this for a while. Why am I not winning? And so you can point, those people to the podcast. You can come back and say, hey, what type of tactics are you doing? How long are you spending on your team design? Where are you going to get your information on Heroclix? And then you just give them resources. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to hold their hand, but it does mean that you give them the tools to be competitive. Why are we trying to make our opponents competitive? Because it keeps them in the game, and it also makes us a better player because we're dealing with more challenging opponents ourselves. Okay? So that's mostly it. And I feel that we are in a point now where we've had more players come in and play than ever before. And it would be a shame if what turns people away from playing Heroclix is the fact that they can't compete. And Modern Age does help that a lot, but at the same time, I hate to say it, with the flood of product that we have this year, those newer players 2 years from now are going to be very upset, considering how much product that they have is going to be retired. So, okay, now into the meat and potatoes of today's podcast. It's been a while since we've talked on this. I think it's since like the 20s or the teens. So yeah, this is a proper time. Let's come back to Colossals, and I like to call this Think Big. Okay, Colossals are unfortunately that part of the meta that either people are like they're one-sidedly broke or they're one-sidedly weak. There is no Colossal that when you plop down on the other side of the board, does the other person say, you know what? This battle can go either way. Most of the time it's like, I'm going to so kill that Colossal, or oh my gosh, I am about to lose. And so I want us to look at that dichotomy in the modern era, and what does this new meta that we have say to Colossals? Because I think a lot of people are looking at Colossals as something that they were playing, 4 months ago, 5 months ago, not something that's viable now. So let's start off and let's go all the way back to the modern age Colossal that we have, and let's go back to GSX. So bring up whatever figure viewer that you want to use. I know there are some cool third-party apps out there now. I just don't have them that let you look at figures and dials and all that other cool jazz and traits. So let's start at the top. Sentinel Mark II, the standard. Pretty much nothing's changed in the meta that makes this thing worth playing. It's pretty much crap. Sentinel Mark 5, the 400-point version, still nothing has changed to make it worth playing. The 200-point version, nothing has changed to make it worth playing. Apocalypse, we have a whole lot more horsemen than we did when he initially came out. The other thing that we have is that we have various other Apocalypse options. Okay, so with other Apocalypse options, we're able to do a couple of cool things. One, if you're not able to afford or win the con exclusive horseman, and if you are fortunate enough to get Archangel, and actually if you just wait until in about 6 months, Archangel is going to be dirt cheap because he's going to be retired. 6-7 months, yeah. Archangel will be retired, so you'll be able to get a cheap Archangel, or we're going to see a new Archangel and Wolverine and the X-Men, and if that's the case, I'm going to laugh. Anyway, so if we're looking at Apocalypse is nice because at 500 points, Apocalypse powers and combat values can't be countered. He can't be a target to incapacitate, which is nice. Apocalypse can use plasticity and shape change. So he has full dial shape change, which helps him stay alive against a lot of various things. 18 clicks. It's pretty good. Can he be a one-man army? No. Does the Infinity Gauntlet offer him anything, that useful? Not really. The one thing that is cool is that you can run a partial gauntlet, so that you can use that Super Senses gem, I think that's the Time gem, the Reality gem, the Soul gem, and the Power gem, and you're pretty much set. You're pretty much set. You don't really need the Mind gem. The Mind gem, unfortunately, is like the weakest gem in most cases, but anyway, you don't really need the Mind gem. So you can place that on him, and since he can't have his powers countered anyway, you don't need to pay the full price of the gauntlet. Now, the utility belt on him could be ridiculous. because you could have a 10 range, 7 damage from range. You can possibly get up and do a really awesome charge and just smash some people. Another cool thing that the utility belt would offer, in my opinion, that would help, that really help Heroclix is that, with some of those shenanigans that you can get, he has a really good range. So if it's using the freeze ray or what else, the smoke pellets or anything else that comes down the line, he'll be able to do that. And he's also from a good distance, and then he's also able to just lay down a whole bunch of damage with the quickness. So that's something to consider. Definitely looking at clicks 9 and 10. Those are some interesting clicks because you get that you appear more worthy power, and you also get your mastermind and vulnerability power. When you get your pulse wave and perplex. So if you don't have anyone to mastermind to, pulse wave with utility belt. If you do have someone that can be there for mastermind fodder, then just sit there and chill. Also, you have to look at from a design perspective. Well, not from a design perspective, from a team building perspective. If you're able to fit in Aussie Hulk, I know I've said that for every mastermind character, but definitely Aussie Hulk with him is ridiculously good. So Heroclix is still viable. Standard Heroclix. Okay. Next up is Onslaught. Now, Onslaught, I am not going to lie, was my go-to Colossal for big games. For a lot of big games. And I had a lot of problems early on because people would outwit Onslaught's defense and then hit him really hard, which really sucked. But with the Infinity Gauntlet and a bazillion team abilities and 12 range, Onslaught is super good. Like, Onslaught, I'm not saying Onslaught can take on Galactus, by himself or anything like that. But Onslaught is still viable for a couple reasons. First off is clicks 4 and 5. Clicks 4 and 5, if you can manage to mitigate whatever is coming in to get back on, to stay on clicks 4 and 5, you are in a great position. The next thing is, yes, Colossal pushing, Infinity Gauntlet, all sorts of wonderful. Not being able to be targeted by Psychic Blast, Incapacitate, Mind Control, or Perplex, that is sort of cool. But the Perplex sort of hurts you, but it also makes sure that your opponent has to use like Hydra or something to modify your defense down. So the other thing that I feel that really puts Onslaught over the edge in modern meta is the fact that once you put on the Infinity Gauntlet, he can triple target Incapacitate. He gains range combat expert, which really boosts his damage up. Yes, he has prob on some of his clicks, but the ones he doesn't, having that reality gem is great. Super Senses is definitely keeping him alive. You don't have really that much overlap with the Infinity Gauntlet and Onslaught's powers. Okay. So overall, Onslaught is great. 1,000-point game, he is going to be rocking it. 700, not so much, but 1,000 points, I think he can come up and be a front man once more. Next up is Nemesis. Now, Nemesis, unfortunately, doesn't really do as much as I wish he would do. And the main reason I say that is Nemesis really, back in the day, we didn't see as much running shot pulse wave as we see now. And definitely because of the Infinity Gauntlet, we see a lot more running shot pulse wave. But, man, he needs the Gauntlet because of he's very top dial focused. And then you also don't want your opponent outwitting your poison or your pulse wave. Because that's your main way of staying alive. The next thing that we can see with Nemesis in the modern era is that sadly the atmosphere for him to be a threat, 400-point single target, it's gone. He has a nice amount of running shot, but that's really not going to help him out really that much. The end dial one click of regen, it's not dependable enough. Sadly, yeah, it's really not dependable enough. So overall, Nemesis, play him if you just want to have fun or do a nice scenario at home, or you decided like, hey, you want to do Horseman of Apocalypse, and he's going to be one of your horsemen at a 1,000-point game or something. So even still, you're just better off with a bunch of other figures. Now, if you're really serious about playing him and you're able to do like a Golden Age game, put Ambidextrous on him. Like, I cannot emphasize how much he needs Ambidextrous. He just needs to be able to get another target on. Yeah, he needs another target. All right, moving on to Frost Giant. Now, there's the 2 points. The 2-point values that he comes in at. 300 points. He has the 300 points, and then he has the 100 points. My advice stays the same. Nothing in the meta really came out to make him that much better at 300 points. The only thing that I would say for you to really think about is that Frost Giants at 100 are Asgardians, and there are a ton of Asgardians out of the Avengers movie set, and you can make some great teams. That Heimdall, the Prob Loki, there's a bunch of Thors. Like, the Frost Giant is your upfront bruiser tank. You get in who is it? Valkyrie, and you have like killer support. So if you look at the meta now, you're paying 100 points for 8 clicks. You're really not getting that anymore. That's really good, really deep. Plus, you can colossal push and charge and pick up objects and do 6 damage. Or if you can put an ultra heavy on your team, 7 damage. It's ridiculous. Frost Giant at 100 points is still valuable. Mainly on your Asgardian teams, your monster teams. Oh yeah, monster. We have Mole Man. Mole Man says, guess what? I'm gonna, mind control me some Frost Giants, and make them move around the field. So Frost Giant, still great figure. If you can keep the spear intact, good for you. Definitely good for you. Next up, we're going to look at the Toys R Us exclusive Apocalypse. The Toys R Us exclusive Apocalypse is amusing. Yeah, that's the best way I could say that. It's amusing. Let's look at one of its trait, Eternal Schemes. If an opposing character within 4 squares uses Outwit, you may place an action token on that character after the action resolves. It's not Outwit protection. All you done is just put a token on them. And if they already have 2 tokens, you can't do anything. Okay? And so, he doesn't have full dial shape change like the other Apocalypse. Sadly. He also has the ability to TK but do damage to his damage value, which to me can sort of help with stealth busting, but I don't really think it's a good thing overall. Running Shot Pulse Wave, he's not the Apocalypse that you want. If you want that big scary Apocalypse, go pay for the other Apocalypse. Don't waste your money on buying this Apocalypse. Next up is Sentinel Mark II. 300 points. That's actually competitive fun, but it's not the best 300 points you can spend. There's things in the meta now that make you sort of look back at that and just question a lot of things. And I also think they put the wrong sculpt on the dial. I think that's the thing that sucks is that the Sentinel Mark II scope should be on the Mark V, and the Mark V scope should be on the Mark II. They just botched that. Anyway, let's go on. Why are you going to play a Sentinel Mark II or Mark V? So let's just bunch them up together. At 300 points, you're really not going to play either of them unless you're really trying to do a fun team, or you're just going to drop one using Master Mold. Like you're just going to, boom, I dropped a huge Sentinel on my opponent. Bam, that's it. There's, now I'm way over the point limit, but this Sentinel is going to help me rally. Completely understandable. Completely understandable. But most time that's not going to happen. Okay? So for 300 points, you get a good amount of clicks. For 100 points for the Mark II, it's more of like, I need to get something out now. Or I need to try to play something a little bit more conservative, and I'm trying to scare my opponent. But if my opponent knew what I'm actually paying for, they wouldn't be concerned at all. Coordinated capture can be great, but you need to make sure you're playing with a robot team. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Same thing with the Sentinel Mark V with coordinated assault. It really needs to make sure you're with the robot team if you're going to play them. Now, the Mark V comes in at 150 and gives you a few more clicks. I don't think that those clicks are worth it, but again, if you really need, to drop a Sentinel, it can be fun. Now, Grand Hunter, like Grandmaster Hunter or Grandmaster Manhunter or something like that, he makes these suckers scary if you have a bunch of them. But you're going to need some coordination. Are they viable in a 300 point meta or a 400 point meta? Not really. You're looking at a 700, 800 point meta before they're viable, and then you're looking at playing them in a very distinct way. They are technically support. Your other attacker goes in, hits, boom, then they trigger off. That's how you have to see it. Okay? All right. Next up is the Onslaught from Toys R Us. And I think that this is a cheaper version of Onslaught in points, but you're losing a lot of what made Onslaught awesome previously. And that was Psychic Blast, high defense, immunity from Psychic Blast, and mind control. And you don't get any of that. Now, this Onslaught can be good for the Gauntlet at 400 points. And then you also can look at the 200 point version and sort of see it. I really am saying sorta. But when we look at a lot of the figures that we have out now in that same point sphere, it is just not up to snuff anymore. So even with the I take the powers I desire, he doesn't have it enough on his dial. He needs like 4 clicks of that. Alright, next up is the Toys R Us Nemesis. The 300 version actually is pretty good for how deep it is, because you're paying 300 points for 15 clicks. That's pretty good. That's a lot of depth, and you have a lot of damage reduction. Now, that first click of willpower is sort of crap. That's sort of crap. But everything else is pretty good. He has the clock is ticking. When he does running shot, you don't have his speed value, so he can running shot, get out 8. So he has a 16 swing. So that's pretty good. So I think that you can play him. You also have a chance of healing him 1 damage, no matter what. Definitely the I've been stealing your life energy, which allows him to, if he's damaged an opposing character, this turn to roll a d6 on a result of 3 through 6, heal nemesis of 1 damage. So it's non-optional because there's no May in there. But man, he has what the other nemesis needed, which is that 2 targets, decent attack values, and just the ability to just keep on trucking. So, all right, and also you have to consider that he has poison. So if you that counts as damaging an opponent. So both the 300 version, I like the 300 version more just because you get way more clicks. You go from having 15 clicks all the way down, having 9 clicks for losing 100 points. I like having 15 clicks. That's by far the best trade-off WizKids has given us. So don't play the 200-point version. Play the 300-point version. The Frost Warrior at 250 is amusing and fun. At 100 points, he is a joke. Do not play the 100 points. The 251 could actually make people concerned. You have enough clicks deep where they don't know if they're going to KO that figure anytime soon. You could, I wouldn't put the Infinity Gauntlet on this character, but I would put the Utility Belt. The Utility Belt would definitely make this a A-grade character. Yeah, definitely. All right, let's move on to Galactic Guardians. Because you might say, well, Dark Logos, what's really has changed since we talked about last with Galactic Guardians? Well, let's see. All right. First up is Galactus. And with the way things are now, at his higher point versions, you have to, like, you go per dial, and so you just shift through the dials. And each dial has its advantages and disadvantages and traits and whatnot. The Herald ability, by far, is great. But the one thing that I would say I've learned so far is just kill the Herald as fast as you can. And then Galactus loses a lot of offensive steam. Because when you kill the Herald, you know, now all Galactus really has is multi-attack and whatever else is on his force. That Herald is really a lot of Galactus's points, and people don't really realize that. And you can sort of tell that the Herald is a lot of Galactus's points once you really start looking at his defense values. Definitely when you start looking at his defense values, it becomes obvious. All right. What's the big thing that we can learn about Galactus? Galactus with the gauntlet is hecka scary. Really hecka scary. Definitely if you do not capitalize on his weaknesses early on, which means like hitting him really hard with Psychic Blast as frequently as possible. Also, just making sure that you're able to eat through all that damage reduction is a bear. If you're dealing with him at an 1800 point level, then yeah, good luck to you killing him with a gauntlet in a 2000 point game. Yeah, just good luck to you. Other than that, you might want to look at a couple of options with playing or dealing with Galactus. The first option is capture. Capture. You might say, like, what? Capture? Really? Yes, capture. Because when he gets to 17 defense, that's his, he has, on his 900 point dial, he has two clicks of 16. If you knock him down to that, don't hit him. Go capture him. Okay? And again, this is if you know you're going to be playing like a 1,000 point game or more, then there's a good chance of someone playing that Galactus at 900 points. If you're dealing with the 300 point version, you know, you're better off KOing him. If you're looking at the 600 point version, then yeah, you're in a tough bout. But the 600 point dial has that big old chunk of toughness. So you just need to make sure like you power through that, and then once you see that 19 in toughness, make sure that you're able to do enough damage to KO him. Make sure you're able to do that 4 damage, minus damage reduction or whatever else you have going. Okay, so there's just a lot of strong things that you can do with. A lot of things you can do with Galactus. Now, I know there's a bunch of feats that you can put on Galactus. I know Shellhead makes him ridiculous. But I would say you're just better off just investing those points into other things. The keywords on him are not really easy to exploit. Definitely Cosmic and Deity. I know that you could play Earthman, but the only thing that's going to stop him from doing is phasing. So that's pretty much it. Let's look at Zeron the Tester, because by far Zeron the Tester is the one I feel gets the most broken in Modern Age or Golden Age. So first off, why does he get broken? First, no matter what point value that you play him on, you're going to get access to either Outwit or Prob or Perplex and Prob. So no matter what, you're going to have access to that. Sadly, they ruled that he doesn't have multi-attack at 300, which would have made sense, but oh well. Of course, he benefits from the Infinity Gauntlet, but he also benefits from the... he really does benefit from the Batman utility belt. Now, one of the main reasons why he benefits from the Batman utility belt, definitely if you start on his 800 point dial, is that you are able to, starting off, you're already immune from being outwitted. You can then say like, okay, that guy over there has a utility belt. He's going to try to take away my power cosmic. I'm going to use testing. Hopefully, with all my testing, I can kill him. Or with all my testing, I kill their medic. Now, they don't have any way of healing, so I can, just send in my team to go kill their utility belt person. The other thing that we can look at with Tester is by having Outwit up front on his 800 point dial. He can get Outwit pretty soon on his 600 point dial, on a pretty decent click at that. What you're able to do is go in, say, boom, I'm going to negate your power cosmic. I'm going to negate your other team abilities. And then Outwit and light them up. So it can be really ridiculous on what he can do. Definitely with the negation of other opposing power cosmic, which can make, sadly, someone's Galactus, pretty much, I wouldn't say trash, but it puts a lot more risk on Galactus. The next thing that we can see with Tester is at 600 points, I've had a lot of people sort of talk with me on this, is that you're able to pretty much put Stunning Blow on him and a couple of other feats, and it makes him ridiculously strong. So that's another element to really consider. It's just, hey, Stunning Blow, and now I put 2 tokens onto you due to multi-attack. So, some people might not think about that as much, but definitely if you have a Golden Age option, I would definitely say above all else, a 600 point Tester on the arrival dial can scare people. Definitely if you're allowing feats. Really, yeah, if you're allowing feats, yeah, definitely. So, the testing dial, we don't really need to get into that. Just sort of, keep in mind that it's going to allow you to control tempo. The first figure that you're going after is the figure with support. If your opponent doesn't have any figure with support, it's who do you need to get off a top dial. So those are things that you need to consider. Next up is my dog, Master Mold. Yeah. We sort of talked about Master Mode a little bit with the Sentinels. With the mini Sentinels from Chaos War coming in at really cheap, you have a bunch of options with the Sentinels. The Sentinels, I really wish that the 50-point Sentinels, when they come in at 50 points, that A, that they had running shot, and then B, that I really do wish that they had like a shield TA or a Hydra TA or a PD or something. Something that would give them that little extra oomph so that when Master Mold spawns them, he can get some added bonuses. But, you know, what comes, it comes. The big thing that we want to look at Master Mold is that he needs the Infinity Gauntlet more than any other figure. That's a Colossal. Definitely at his 200-point version. If you compare Master Mold's 200-point version to some other characters' 200-point version, like I think the Nemesis I was talking about, a couple other characters. Definitely that 200-point Sentinel. You will notice like distinctly that it's a Master Mold is weaker. His first click is baller, but overall he's weaker. Now, what makes Master Mold worthy to think about at 200 points, and why even more so am I putting a gauntlet on him? Well, because he can do multi-attack. All his dials he can do multi-attack, unlike other Colossals. He can do multi-attack the entire time. So I've talked about phasing up and then, hitting someone with ranged combat expert for 4 damage, doing 4 damage, because you would reduce his damage down by 1 because of multi-attack. He can do ridiculous stuff. Plus, he's immune to Psychic Blast. So Psychic Blast and Mind Control on all of his dials. Also, he can't be targeted by Perplex. Opponent's Mind Control, Psychic Blast, or Perplex. So you can Perplex Master Mold. So there are advantages instead of Onslaught, who just says you can't target him with Mind Control, Psychic Blast, or Perplex. The other thing is that when you start looking at Retribution Virus, it's a beautiful thing. Factory Relocation has its advantages now and then. But overall, Madame Xanadu, I should have said this with all of them. Any of the Colossals that can multi-attack, Madame Xanadu just comes in and makes them wonderful. And says, oh, you missed? That's okay. When you multi-attack and target multiple figures that second time around, you'll be great. And you won't take a token. And this can really fuel with the gauntlet silliness. So, but overall, Master Mold's still very viable. Now, some people might say, well, Bizarre World Map, blah, blah, blah. I mean, you can play him on a robot-themed team. And then Ruler. Ruler gives you some options as well. More options than people would care to admit. So, that's something to think about, is that you can play him on a Ruler or a robot team. You're going to have more fun with the robot team. I know that for a fact. Next up is Giganto, the Mole Monster. I would say previously, this figure was on my turd list. Like, I thought it was horrible at all point values, and when I got mine, I immediately traded him. But what gave me a moment of pause with this Giganto was you could play him with Mole Man and do some funny stuff. Okay. Alright, so you can use Mole Man, have him use Surprise Tunneling. Giganto, the Mole Monster, can use Phasing Teleport if not occupying elevated or water terrain. When he does, his speed value becomes 10 and places debris tokens in the squares he begins and ends his movement in. After his action, you can use Phasing Teleport. After his action to use Phasing Teleport resolves, he can use Quake as a free action. Okay, now here's where the funny part is. You can mind control Giganto to do that trait, Quake, have him phasing teleport normally and Quake again. Or, because it doesn't say once per turn, okay? Or you could just have him punch somebody because he can, or charge and punch somebody because he can, with exploit. So, all of his versions on their first click, except for one of the dials, starts with charge and exploit. So you always have that option. The next thing that really just grabs me as hilarious is that in the modern meta with Mole Man, you can do the sink the buildings once per game, give Giganto the Mole Monster a power action if he occupies a square that's adjacent to printed brown terrain that continues. The continuous area of printed blocking terrain becomes hindering terrain instead and deals each other character occupying a square adjacent to that printed brown line 2 damage. This can be interesting. Definitely when you start dealing with the higher elevation maps that have lots of blocking terrain, and you just see people hiding on the other side of blocking terrain. So it does have its advantages. Is it game breaking? No, it's just minorly amusing. But I really hate to say it, but yes, Giganto does have a place in the meta. It hurts me to say that. It hurts my pride as a Heroclix player, but yeah, it does have a place in the meta. So consider that. You can play him at 400 points of iterations of 100 all the way down to 100. Next up is Owatu. And I'm going to talk about the 400 point version and before I really talk about the other versions. The 400 point version, well, actually, the 400 point version that's in the 200 point version can be put into the same camp. Why am I bringing them up? Pure and simple, there's a cool exploit, but you have to ask yourself, is it worth it? Really, I'll take that back. It's more so for the 200 point version than the 400 point version, because the 400 point version, you sort of build up until the combo is actually viable, which ends up being like a waste of points almost. Yeah, it almost becomes a waste of points. But you can do some cool stuff. But pretty much what you do is use Chase Thanos to swap Watu's speed in his attack. So Watu now has a 14 attack and 9 movement. And then he has a 12 range and he's a colossal, so he can pretty much just see whoever he wants to see. And then you use enhancement or perplex or whatever else you want to use to up his damage to whatever cap you want to. At 400 points, he's only doing 5 damage cap, but starting off. But when you move over to his 200 point dial, he starts off with 4 damage. And that is a lot better. And you can abuse that a lot more. Way a lot more. And so you can get up to 7 damage in a 14 attack, which is pretty much almost an auto hit. I had an opponent do that to me, and he missed one of the attacks with a Watu. So I sort of laughed because he needed a 3, and he crit missed. So that combo in the modern age has its advantages. You also could use some sort of silliness of like, oh, look, I'm Batman enemy or Sinister Six with the 200 point of Watu by copying team abilities using Cypher, and then say, hey, look, I shuffled off my 11 attack to, whoever. Or I'm copying a 12 from whoever. So you can get a lot of cool stuff from that with that Watu. And then also you could, because I think it's a replacement value. I don't know. I don't think if you switched the movement and attack with the Watu, could you then share that 14 with other people? I don't think so. So The 50-point Watu, I've seen this sucker abused so much with the Unspoken. It's it's ridiculous. And for those who don't know, pretty much you have Unspoken charge up. Get carried up with a Watu. A Watu then places Unspoken away from the opposing figures, just making sure that they can't do anything now because they have Battle Fury, and also I don't think they could do any attacks or whatever. Then he charges, hits, and when it's all said and done, a Watu phases back one. Or phases back just enough for him to charge again so that your opponent can't hit him back. So it's ridiculously strong. Is it 300 points guaranteed win strong? Not really. But it is really strong for big point games. Next up is Dormammu. And if you don't know about Dormammu and that Iron Man from the prize support that allows you to mind control a Colossal and take no feedback. If you don't know about that combination, there's a bunch of laments in me and other podcast episodes about this. Pretty much you're able to mind control to empower. You can use Empower Minion. Normally, then mind control him to use Empower Minion again. So that's really suck. Now, I will warn you where things could get really scary. If there is a character that comes in the future that allows you to grant any other character a keyword. Now, if this exists, please tell me, people. Please do tell me, because I really want to pull some shenanigans. If you're able to give Dormammu the monster keyword, oh my goodness, watch out. Watch out, because he's going to be on a roll. Now, you could also say like Mole Man and Nightwing. That would be pretty cool. But not as awesome as I would want it to be. But the big issue is that at 600 points, it's okay. We're really not gaining that much. We're getting, some more clicks and whatnot, but in all honesty, without multi-attack, I can't justify playing him at 600 points, unlike Onslaught. Because Onslaught's values are way better. He goes up as the game progresses. Now, looking at Dormammu at 250, like, play this dude all day. Like, this is by far one of the funnest characters that you can play. I will say this, at 250, he gives a chance for your opponent to win. But if you play him wisely, you can really jack with your opponent. You don't take Mystic's Mystic's damage, which is awesome just for him being on your team. So you can put Mystics on your team without much concern. You can boost up his stats real easily. Now, if you might say, like, him compared to an Odin, who's better, I would say Odin. But if I was just to, look at all the benefits that this 250 points gives me, I would definitely consider Dormammu over Odin in a 500, 600 point game. And like a 800 point game and above, Odin might actually be a bit better. So definitely still think about him. Yeah, the Infinity Gauntlet can help. The utility belt will actually make him ridiculous. Definitely after you give him that double power action to turn to any click on the dial that you want. Then after you're able to clear, just running, shotting out, and 13 attack, 6 damage, psychic blast, 12 range, with a 6 movement with your. Yeah, it's an 18 swing. That's pretty much the entire map. So if you have a good map, you have the right map, he could just hit anyone he wants to and then peg them for 6. And if you want to perplex up, his damage 7. So I mean, yeah. So he, by far, it's ridiculous. Now I'm going to end this think big. I really want us to look at just the multi-base chunky dials, just for how much space that uh, is there. So we're going to go over vehicles again real briefly. Now you might say like, okay, Dark Logos, you've been talking about vehicles, 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 more vehicles. We're tired of vehicles. But I want you to hear what I'm going to say, just for the pure fact that I want you to think about vehicles in that same class as colossals. Okay? Multi-base figures that take up a more than a peanut base, but then they also bring us into certain perspectives. What does multi-base do to our brains when we see multi-base? Usually, most of the time, we're like, oh man, multi-base figures, something's about to happen. So, let's go to it. Batmobile. I still say that the piloted mode is the best, and he can, in piloted mode, you can carry up to 3 people. In autopilot, you can carry 4. But definitely in piloted mode, it can be very awesome if you're able to mind control someone and put them inside the Batmobile and have the Batmobile ram. You also can assign the Batmobile. Uh, you can assign the Batmobile a gauntlet or any resource dial or utility belt. Would I recommend it? Not necessarily. Definitely not in piloted mode or autopilot. But I can see why you might see it happen. Okay? Because, again, do that double power action. You're now looking at 11 attack, 5 damage, and RAM, which can be ridiculous. Definitely in piloted mode. Then you also have Lookout. It's Batman. Batmobile can use charge and ram ability. When it uses the ram ability, modify the attack value of up to 3 hit characters by -1 until the beginning of your next turn. So just being able to use charge and ram, you just hit a whole row of figures for a bunch of damage. So there's a lot of advantages with that, with the utility belt and the utility belt and the Batmobile. When you're looking at the gauntlet, Steel Energy, with the RAM, you're pretty much doing a melee attack. So just, I don't even know how that could add up with Steel Energy. If it allows you to just like heal multiple, I don't think it would, but if it could, I don't know. That would be pretty sick, because that would make the Batmobile really hard to kill. Once you consider the RAM ability. Next up is the Batwing. Now, I will say this: the Batwing, at the stage that we're at now, its main purpose is just tie-up and decoration. It's just something cool to add to your Gotham City teams. You can have Gordon send the Batwing out, and it's like, get in the position, homie, and, just block line of fire for us. The Batwing, I hate to say it, it doesn't do that much, but just be a bunch of clicks to kill. Now, I will say that you're better off with autopiloted instead of the piloted, because the piloted mode, you're paying 144 points for that 15 clicks. You're on the same scale, dial-wise, as a Colossal for health, but you're looking at not really that much damage being cranked out. And even though your movement is great and you have an additional lightning bolt, additional target, it's just not that good. It's not that good for what you need to do. So you're better off with autopilot and Gordon and just getting it into position than you are for anything else. It's just, yeah, it's just good blocking terrain. It's cheap. So next up, we're looking at the Invisible Jet. The Invisible Jet, some of the cool stuff that we really want to consider is Amazons. There are a lot of cheap Amazons that we can put in as the pilot. There's a lot of cheap JSA or JLA that we can put in. One of my newfound figures that is going to be one of the best pilots for most of the figures that are out there is the Batgirl from the Gravity Feed at 25 points. She gets JLA, keyword, and team ability, and she has Gotham City keyword, and I think, yeah, Justice League keyword. So she's able to pilot. At the rookie, she gets Bat Family, Birds of Prey, Detective, Gotham City, Justice League. So she's able to get a whole bunch of benefits off of the Batmobile. She's able to get certain bonuses off of the Invisible Jet. And she's also able to get bonuses off the GCPD Cruiser. And I'm not sure on the Bug. I don't think on the Bug. And the Bug too. Yes, on the Bug too, because she'll get Beetle built some nice tricks into this pilot ability, JLA team ability, or scientist keyword. Yeah. So pretty much she is like your cheapest all-purpose pilot for you to play. The other thing that we're looking at, going back to just the Invisible Jet in general, is we talked about mobile blocking terrain. We also previously talked about Ghetto Super Senses having that, and then that Super Senses being unoutwittable. But the thing that we can really sort of examine in on is that regen, that pulse wave, and the question is when can we do kamikaze, and what else can we say from the Dark Knight set that's really benefited this? Well, first off is your Justice League teams have a means of mass deploying. Just sort of think about this. What's some of your concerns with Big Barda boom tubing in and then hitting a character and then sort of stuck? Well, can Big Barda survive? Yeah, she'll have a 19 defense or whatever. But then what happens when she has to clear? You know, she's back down to 17 and your opponent can shoot. Well, boom, Invisible Jet. Bring the Invisible Jet in right after Big Barda does her boom tube. Make sure it's in a position, right next to Big Barda. Big Barda has that 19 plus Ghetto Super Senses. What's your opponent going to target? Your opponent's going to target an Invisible Jet. Bam. Next turn, take Barda out of there. Phase out. Go wherever you need to go. And then get Barda healed up or Invisible Jet healed up or whatever you need to do. Then you're able to save Barda. Also, if you want to use Barda, Big Barda, and Wonder Woman from the Fast Forces combo and do a 1-2 punch, you'll be able to carry both of them out of there. So the Invisible Jet is a means of going in, deploying, and then coming out and either blocking for your figures or just getting your figures out of that situation. So you put them into a risky situation, they did what they did, and now this is the extraction point. So that's one of the big advantages of the Invisible Jet. Now, I'll recant something on the Batwing, considering it. With the Batwing on autopilot, being able to carry 3 for your outsiders teams, or just pretty much a lot of teams in general, being able to deploy 3 figures for 72 points, that's really cheap, and that has its advantages. In piloted mode, I think, you only can have 3 passengers. In autopilot, you have 4, and piloted is 3. I apologize. Um, no, I'm looking at the wrong dial. Autopiloted for the Batwing is 3. Yeah, piloted, I think it's 2. Yeah, the pilot is 2, so it's usually 1 less. So, being able to deploy and following up and doing extraction is cool. But the only problem is with Bat Family, Gotham City, and vehicle, but mainly Gotham City and Batman Family. Those 2 dials in particular, I mean those 2 keywords in particular, they don't. Those figures usually want to just stay wherever they're at. So that's something. I really wish that the Batwing did have Batman team ability. Oh well, can't get everything you want. Gotham PD Cruiser. Yeah, that sucker is strong. There's some things that's not strong as I would like it to be. But when I was playing George Masu, what I did learn was having that 1 damage. Your opponent would rather take that 1 damage than the follow-up damage. But your key element is that you have to keep sort of doing this dragnet where you can bring whoever you need to haymaker closer and closer, knowing that your cruiser is going to get beat up. And then once your cruiser is beat up, then you go get it healed so that you can do it all over again. But your main thing is that you cannot, in your positioning, put out your big attackers into line of fire or a retaliation range, because if you do, your opponent's going to go after your big hitter, knowing that the cruiser can do 1 damage, and if they have 4 or 5 clicks left, they know that they have 6 or 7 turns of living, and they can KO your vehicle in that time. So your main goal with the Gotham City PD Cruiser is to go hit the big characters, whoever you need to target, move them into position so that your spiker, your big damage dealer, doesn't have to go that far out from the starting area or from the safe area that you set up, and that you're able to just do a Nightcrawler. Okay, I need to get this figure here from that square to here. Okay, I can do that. And that's where you have to see it as. Going on, the military tank. The military tank, I feel autopilot at 38. Getting 7 clicks for 38 points can be valuable. 38 points, yes, and this is where I feel that it can be very, very strong. And the RAM ability, okay, whatever. It improves movement. The ignores blocking terrain and destroys blocking terrain as the character moves through it, can be awesome for. And I'm going to say it like this, and I really do mean it like this. You can use the tank as a slow moving breacher. If you ever played, I forgot, I think it was like Call of Duty, I think it was Black Ops, but you had breach mode, and so you would put the dynamite, the explosives on the door. When it breached, you would have like the slow-mo, and then you would just shoot the targets and all that. This is the same thing. Do you have a map that really sucks for your team, and let's say it is the Realm of Death? Bam, military tank. It just moves up and busts down walls. You don't have to invest a lot of points in busting down walls, and now you have a figure that you can hide behind. Okay, so the military tank, 7 clicks. It's not that deep, but really ask yourselves, for 38 points, when's the last time that you got 7 clicks? And if so, it's been a long time. In-dial enhancement is nice. 3 passengers. You can carry 3 figures with autopilot mode. In piloted mode, I think there's some shenanigans here, not that much. And one of the things I will say is being able to boost up the range of your soldiers by +1, +2, or +3 with a soldier pilot is cool. Then you also can put in easy company. Any easy company uh, character can go in and be the pilot of this and just be awesome. Uh, Pretty much having the ability to replace all your modify all your stats by +1 once you use the replacement stat values can be great. Definitely when you're looking at like Sergeant Rock, I think Sergeant Rock starts off with a 10, and then you would get like a +1. So you would get some pretty good, you would get some pretty decent stats. And then also you can look at it like this: for 75 points, getting 9 clicks is okay. Uh, yeah, 9 clicks is okay. It can be burst down real easily, but still, there's some really cool stuff there. Just being able to go through, bust down walls, get enhancement in piloted mode. Uh, you can benefit from recharge, the recharge feat, and that's something I really haven't talked about. That recharge feat, I think it's like if you hit with it with energy explosion, you get to heal 1 click. So that could actually help you with your ramming. So those are just something to consider. Also, some things are just letting you know, people, like you don't have to have a pilot that matches the pilot's abilities. You can have any pilot that you want in there, and they can do whatever they want. You only get the piloted abilities when they meet the prerequisites. So, Haunted Tank, where Haunted Tank sort of stands out now is, yeah, you can use that recharge feat uh, on its autopiloted mode, which would help it stay alive a little bit. Also, you could do Shellhead a little bit as well, but I don't think that is the best option. You know, it is it's another breaching vehicle, but you're better off with just the normal military tank. In piloted mode, you get a whole lot more support, and I think it does support a lot better than, I hate to say it, than the bug. Yeah, it does a lot better support than the bug, and it just does a whole lot more things that are advantageous for soldier teams. So, next up and lastly is the bug. It's the only vehicle colossal or vehicle giant. I was going to say colossal. Figure there is. It has some unique properties that I think are interesting. Looking back and also hearing people talk about their experiences with the bug. First off, everyone's like, oh my gosh, this sucker is broken. It can reduce all this damage down. And then people just build teams that crank out lots of damage. And then you see the bug melt, because you go from dealing the bug player will not pay attention to their dial, and they'll sacrifice hazardous environment dial or beetle dial or whatever else, and then those will burn through really quickly, and then you're stuck with your main dial and you have no means of regenerating it back. So that really sucks, and I think when you'll see advanced play of the bug is when people start realizing, okay, I need to take a couple of clicks here and then a couple of clicks there on my alternative dials, but then I need to start taking hits on my main dial so that I'm able to do other elements and to get my other dials back into the game. The other issue I see right now is trying to do poison with the beetle is probably going to be his mid and end game harass, as he also like picks people up and does other silly stuff with his powers, and he's trying to heal and support and all this other jazz. I think that with the bug, we are stuck in a position in autopilot mode. that it's something fun, something that can be a bit useful, and will definitely help you deploy all of your Justice League or Justice League International figures really easily on a team. On a 1,000-point game, the bug is justifiable on autopilot mode. Pure and simple. I would not look at the autopilot mode bug for less than 500 points. And you're remembering, like with the bug, his main goal is to deploy and retrieve figures. And then mid and late game, he becomes an attacker. In piloted mode, I definitely wouldn't play him in anything but like an 800 to 1,000 point game. Then everyone has fun and laughs and it's like, oh, look at my theme team. But other than that, he doesn't really offer much. Okay, so we've had this super long episode. You're like, oh, we've gone through all those colossals and big figures and vehicles. What else does he have to say? Well, let's compress everything down. Let's compress everything down. What have we noticed? What gives value? Special powers that allow us to do silly stuff. The ability to do multi-attack. To retrieve and deploy figures. To be able to do crazy amounts of damage in one turn. Survivability by having great keywords and great pilots, or just being able to have like shape change, super senses, imperv, the super defense wall combo stuff. When we look at all those things, we can see that multi-base figures beyond Peanuts are doing a lot more in the meta than classic Colossals ever did. Yes, classic Colossals had special rules and they can come in and blast people for bazillions damage, but they never really provided any survivability beyond their stats. And we are in a meta now that some of those old stats aren't as big of a problem to overcome. A 20 defense is good, but with a lot of 11s floating around the meta, getting an attack up to a 13 with Perplex is not that hard anymore. Okay? So keep that in mind. We have a meta in which we can utilize these big figures in various point ranges and have a lot of fun, whether we're using feats, whether we're using resource dials or relics or whatever else. We can come in and we can do some really fun stuff, and we can build teams that are beneficial for all of these mechanics. Now the question comes in is, do we shoot for map control? Do we shoot for overall just control from our effects that we have on our force, or are we looking to just bust down the wall and chase down our opponent? So you have figures like Frost Giant Champion, who is, boom, go in there, chase down my opponent, but I'm with a bunch of Asgardians. You have Master Mold, who's like, give me enough time to set up and stall. Once I'm set up, it's almost GG. You can't come back. If I get to my production dial to the point where I can summon 300-point robots, or I get my gauntlet down and I'm on +1 stats and I'm using multi-attack, yeah, GG. When you're looking at figures like Galactus or Tester and they're by themselves. Galactus always has a Herald. But you look at those, then they can just sit back and say, fool, you come to me. And Galactus doesn't have to do anything. Galactus can just stand there. And Tester the same way. Once Tester does testing, if Tester is able to do 6 damage with testing, and that's usually can kill a figure. Okay? Tester does not have to go anywhere. Tester can just stand there and be like, what? You have to come get me now. I don't have to do anything. So you can determine what you're going to do with your figures, but you have to have a plan. And I wanted to go back and show you all this, just because the assumption in Heroclix is oh my gosh, it's a bigger figure with more places to target, then it's a bigger risk and it's not worth playing. No, that is poor thinking. It is lazy thinking. Go out there, get creative, and find new stuff. All right, that's it. Thanks for listening. Hit me up on Twitter at StartOverPod. That's StartOverPod. Email me at startingoverpodcast@gmail.com. That's startingoverpodcast@gmail.com. And check out the blog. Please, 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 if you got this far, please check out the blog. If you haven't already, the blog has original content, stuff just for you. And the blog is startingoverpodcast.blogspot.com. I got to get used to saying that. All right, that's it, people. Thank you for listening. And remember, we all have to start over sometime.